Armory disc golfers, welcome back to another video. Sacred Discs just came out with their first line of discs, and this one that we'll be looking at today might be one of the only discs on the market that can give the Berg a legitimate run for its money. So today we're going to check that out. Let's get into it. We're back here at Research Park once again. We're going from the red stay because we're throwing a 1-speed and a 2-speed disc. And I'll show you how the Berg and the Gnome compare and give a bit more in-depth of a review of the Gnome because, like I said, they just dropped. I'm gonna throw it pretty flat, just a little left, and let it drift back in at the very end. Berg, extremely straight disc. All right, now I'll toss the Gnome at it. This has flight numbers of 2201 compared to the Berg's 1102. Let's see what that looks like in the air. Threw that one a little more straight at the basket. Very similar flight path. A disc like this is perfect for a shot like this because just 20 feet to the right of the basket here from the perspective of the camera is just a sheer drop off with OB water behind it. So something like the Gnome or a Berg that's just going to fall down and not move anywhere is perfect. I will say these don't feel great to putt. And if the Gnome doesn't feel great, the Berg feels absolutely awful, but that's what we're going with today. So like I said, Sacred Discs is a new line of discs. This is actually a collaboration done between Lone Star and Nikko. I guess that was part of his contract signing with them or whatever. I don't know all the ins and outs. I just know that he had a hand in designing this. Whoever designed it, I think did a solid job. This is their Alchemy line of plastic. It's the same thing as Lone Star's Alpha plastic, and supposedly it's blended with herbs and spices as well, because it's a very Nikko sort of thing to do. They also have another plastic which is similar to Lone Star's Delta plastic, and that has an even higher concentration of those herbs and spices, and it's called the Aroma line. Also, very on-brand sort of thing for Nikko to be doing. From what I've been told, this entire first run of Alchemy line came out real puddle-topped, which also makes it feel similar to a Berg, and I kind of like. Similar to how the Berg has this concavity to it, the Gnome is rocking that same sort of thing, which I think reduces glide and gives it that nice characteristic of just wanting to fall down to the ground without you having to worry about it pushing past your target. Hole 2, 226 feet. We're gonna see how these hold up to forehand hyzers again. Gnome first. Maybe a touch of stand up to it, but a relatively neutral flight and wants to fade at the end. Again, a little touch of stand up. And I can feel from that, I don't know if it'll translate over to camera, that the Gnome has just a touch more of a little push at the end to it, whereas the Berg, once it gets tired, it just wants to fall down to the ground and stop moving completely. It's nuanced, but I think there's a subtle difference there. That nuance could be caused because the Berg is a 1-speed disc and the Gnome is a 2-speed disc. And so there are slight differences to them. They're not the exact same. No two discs are, especially when you're dealing with something like a Berg. But I think that difference could actually be really helpful because I bag this Berg specifically, and there are times that I want to throw it, but I'm just not confident that I can quite push it that extra 20-ish feet or whatever that I want to get to the basket. So maybe the Gnome could be really helpful there. Well, it looks like the lack of glide was actually really helpful for the Berg on this one because the Gnome is over here somewhere. Oh, here we are. This actually exemplifies kind of what I was just talking about. The Gnome has that 20, 30-ish foot extra bit of push to the end of it, even at this range. Maybe. Which that might have to do with how hard I threw it or whatnot, but you'll see that as a pattern over and over. Our third hole is hole 5 here at Research Park. We got 191 feet, OB water right, OB sidewalk and beyond left. And this is my first time backhanding these in this video, so this is a good time for me to say that I hate the way both of these discs feel on backhand. This is obviously a personal preference thing. I don't know exactly what it is about it with the Gnome. It has a thin rim, it's got the puddle topped. I like to power grip everything that I can. You don't have to agree with me on that. That's how I feel. The Berg, this little lip thing makes me feel like it's going to hook onto my thumb and I'm gonna grip lock it or something. Never liked backhanding it. Like I said, this disc is in my bag. I only forehand it, but we'll see how this goes. Nice and gentle. I can really feel the speed of the disc there. I don't know if that makes a ton of sense given that it's only a 2-speed disc in a 191-foot hole, but it seemed like it wanted to get there and then just kind of fall down. Whereas with the Berg, I expect to have to hit it a little bit harder to have it push there before it falls down. Well, I hate the way you feel. Dig. Stupid disc feels terrible backhand. I do think that shows you that the Berg does have a touch more fade, which is what the flight numbers indicate as well. Horrible for putting as well. The putter, the Berg is a 1102, so it should have a little bit more of that late flight bite to it than the Gnome. And that's also why I think that it's a terrible putting putter, because once again, the thing just feels like it catches on my hand. Our fourth hole is 285 feet, and these are not the discs that I would throw on this hole, but I do want to show you about how far they fly and how they compare to one another, because these are both going to be pretty max effort hucks from me. I want to show you the rim of the Gnome. It reminds me of a slammer, but maybe not quite as tall, but it has that same sort of structure and shape to it. Slammer, harp, something like that. So as far as rims go and hand feel, Berg and Gnome, very, very different. Goodness grief, disc. Does not want to fly. I still hate the way that feels backhand, but I hate it less when I'm throwing it full power. Oh, get straight through it. Good. I'm glad I didn't hit anything, because I think that's a good comparison of how they fly backhand at pretty full power. The Gnome has that bit extra push to it, but it doesn't really come at the cost of stability like it does with something like an Armadillo. The Armadillo, if you throw it really hard, it'll flip and pan, whereas the Gnome wants to hold that same line, similar to a Berg. It just pushes a little bit farther. Could be good, could be bad, depends on what you want, depends on what you need. Stay up. Man, that would have been pretty cool if I'd kept it high. Whereas this guy made it all the way to 25 feet. Like I said, terrible putter. Also, like I said, that can be good, it can be bad. It just depends on what you need for that particular shot. And yes, before you feel the need to say anything, I understand that it's not the putter, it's the putter. That's the reason I'm missing these. Doesn't hurt my self-esteem at all. Don't worry about it. Our fifth hole is 365 feet downhill. I'm not gonna reach it, but once again, I want you to see how these compare with pretty full effort. I'm gonna put them on a little bit of Anheuser this time so you can see how they both like to hold, how they come out of it, how long they stay straight, etc. as they float downhill. Missed that tree. It wants to stay so straight with just a touch of fade at the very, very end. 2201 seems pretty spot on. So straight, barely wants to fade at all thrown at that power, even though it does have the 2 fade. When thrown that hard, the Berg really just wants to sit down at the end of the flight. The Berg is right here, the Gnome is about in this area, and they're about equidistant from the basket, which I actually like because I feel like I've been highlighting the differences between these two discs, but the whole point of the video is that they're very, very similar to one another, and you can achieve very similar flights with slight nuances between the two of them. I'm gonna pick up the Gnome and I'm gonna throw them both from where the Berg is sitting right now. And after having thrown these a few more times, I can say I do marginally prefer the Gnome backhand over the Berg. Again, personal preference thing, and I'm still slightly leaning on the Berg for forehand. Oh, it's too low. It's online though. Also too low, also online. That's what happens when you don't adjust. Our sixth hole is 213. I was recorded the other day saying that the Gnome might replace both my Berg and my Pig, which is crazy if you know me, if you follow the channel. But it's because of shots like this, where I could get a Berg there, but I would be kind of uncomfortable doing so. The Gnome has that little bit extra push to it, but also has enough stability to it to where I can have those short forehand approaches that I lean on the Pig so much for that little bit of extra distance. Let's go forehand hyzer, see how much they flip up. I was trying to start it pretty much straight at the basket because the Berg, as you see, doesn't really want to go left or right. The Gnome, similarly, oh, get in. Oh, I thought I was gonna get some tree love there. But similarly, the Gnome doesn't really want to go left or right too much, so I was trying to start them both pretty much straight at the basket. Obviously the Berg, I just started a little farther left. Just outside the circle means it's jump putting time with the Berg. Cash. Like I said, that's the best putter of all time. So both discs can get the job done. If you like the Berg, we have some available at copycat.com. If you like the Gnome, we have them available for pre-order. These drop August 18th. You can get the alchemy line with a little bit of sage. You can get the aroma line with a little bit more sage in it, and use the code Sacred Spices, get 10% off of those. Those pre-orders will also come with a free entry into a giveaway to snag one of these things for free, so don't miss out on that. Thank y'all so much for continuing to support the shop. Let's get into this next shot. This is the sort of shot that I really like to use my Berg for. A forehand on a little bit of an anhyzer that just slowly drifts from right to left the entire way. So we'll see how the Gnome compares with this sort of shot. Start out right of the basket and just have it drift the entire way before settling gently down. The Gnome, again, looks like it wants to hold a touch more. They ended up in the same spot. It felt like it wanted to hold a touch more and get there a little bit faster, but for all intents and purposes, those discs are on top of each other. And maybe that's the biggest difference between these two discs. Not even in how they feel in the hand or how they fly in the air, but the feeling that you get when throwing them. Because the mental side of disc golf is massive and shouldn't be overlooked. So if you like the way the Berg flies, if you're confident when you release it, stick with the Berg, sure, go ahead. But if you're looking for a little bit different of a feeling through the air, something that gives you a different look, a different feel, the Gnome could be an excellent choice for a disc like this. Our final hole is 230 feet, and this is actually a great example of what I was talking about with perception, because I'm sure I could get there with either one of these discs, but I'm a little bit more confident in the Berg because I know that I'm not going to overpower the basket, and if I do, it'll only be by about 10 feet. So I can throw this nice and firm, whereas whether it's true or not, I feel like I could go a little bit long with the Gnome. So sometimes I prefer the Gnome, like on one of these previous holes where I wanted that extra push with a forehand. Sometimes I'd prefer a Berg. There's nuance to this stuff. And that's part of the fun part of disc golf, is you get to decide where you want to choose between things like this. Oh, get off it, good. Yeah, see, that might finish right, but I don't think that's going to finish very long at all. No, it's right next to the pin. I tried to put the same pace and everything on that, and it is pin high, maybe because it was lower, maybe because it has that one glide instead of two, but the Gnome held straighter there. They're both solid shots. Let me know in the comment section below what you think about the Berg versus the Gnome. Do you bag a Berg, and if so, is the Gnome a competitor in that slot, or are you content with what you've got? Thank y'all so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please leave a like rating. It really helps me out. Subscribe so that you can catch future content that we got coming, and I'll see y'all in the next one.